Everybody, welcome to the video tutorial for the marbleized clay dish. And what you're going to have in your kit, or this is sort of what we're going to be making, but what you will have in your kit is the clay. You'll have some parchment paper, and you'll have a skewer and some paint, and not in this container, but in a little container, and a paintbrush, okay? And what you're going to need for this is something that you can use as a template for cutting out the marbleized clay once you've rolled it out. I'm using sort of basically a red Solo cup, which is about a 4-inch diameter. Because that works for the shape I'm going to use, which is I'm going to use a muffin tin. This is a regular size muffin tin. I'm going to use the back side of it to put the clay over to make the shape of the dish. And the 4-inch diameter circle works perfectly for this particular shape. You could use anything to shape your clay. Just make sure that it can be put in the oven. So once you're done with this, you will be baking it in a 275-degree oven for, it's 15 minutes per 1/4-inch thickness. So you have to sort of gauge it based on that. And when it's baked, it's harder, but it doesn't feel like the way China would. It still feels a little bit, I don't know, it's not soft per se, but it doesn't feel as solid as China does. So just be aware that that's the case. So in order to marbleize it, all I need is my parchment paper and the clay. And you need to have something, put something down, because the color does transfer. And you'll see after I've rolled it out how that works. Oh, you're also going to need something to roll it out. A rolling pin. I'm using a water bottle that's fairly even on the sides. You know, whatever, something like that, but you need to have something flat that you can roll it out with. So the way you start, and oh, another thing is the base color is going to be white, obviously. And then I've got 2 smaller pieces of these 2 darker shades. There is a small bit of a sort of a glittery gold. You do not need that if you don't want the gold in there. I think it makes it look very nice. It adds a little bit of a sheen to it, which you can see in some areas where the gold is, but it just sort of adds, I think, to it to make it look more like, you know, real marble. But again, all you need is 3 colors minimum, and you can decide not to use the gold if you don't want it. What I'm going to do is make a snake with each color. You want to make it about the same length. So let's say it doesn't have to be perfect. So, but you do want to make each snake about the same length. Again, it's not an exact science, which is kind of nice, but I find it easier to start it out in my hands and then roll it out on the parchment paper. But you've got to hold the parchment paper down. If you've got a cutting board or something like that that can be washed, you could use that, but I can't guarantee that the color won't transfer. So I would honestly think that you'd be better off with the parchment paper. Okay, let me get these done. The parchment paper is a little annoying because it slips and slides all over the place, so you really do have to hold it down. That would be my only criticism of using parchment paper. Make this a little bit longer. And it doesn't matter what order you sort of line them up in. And this one will be just a little skinny one. Now, the more you do the twists that I'll show you, the more marbleized your dish will be. The example I have here, I only did three twists. On this one, I'm gonna do 4, and I'll show you what I mean. So I'm gonna push that together a little bit. Kinda wanna roll that into a snake, or push it into a snake is probably easier, like this. Then what you do is you fold it in half and you twist it. And that's one twist, okay? And then you roll it together like this. Make it smooth. So then I'm gonna fold it in half. Make 2 twists, okay? And again, roll it out. You see how it's blending? If you do too many twists, though, it'll just turn into mush. You will not see the definition of the marbling. This is 3. And then you've got 4. Okay, and I'm gonna roll it into a ball. So now I've got a ball. All right, this is where you need your other piece of parchment paper. I'm gonna flatten this out a little bit with my hand first. Okay, then I'm gonna take my other piece of parchment paper and grab my makeshift rolling pin. And if you've ever done any kind of pastry or anything like that, you remember you do not go all the way to the edge. You just stop shy of the edge and you twist it around this way to flatten out the sides that you didn't get with your rolling pin. The reason for this is to keep it evenly thick. If you roll off the edge of the disc, it'll make that edge super thin, and then it won't look right. So you want to keep it sort of even, and you got to kind of press down hard. This is pretty hard to roll out. Doable, but I'm standing up so I can get enough pressure on it. And you can see how the marbleization looks, okay? And again, I'm gonna turn it a quarter turn. And let me measure and see if I've got my 4 inches. Oh, almost, I wanna make it a little bit. Basically, a 4-inch diameter will give you about a 1/4 inch thickness with the amount of clay you've got. So, you can see on the side, it feels pretty even. I'm gonna just make sure this, yeah, perfect. So now as I pull it aside, see how pretty that is? And you see how it leaves some of the color. That's why you don't want to put it on a surface that's, that'll be a problem. It will stain. So I'm gonna take this, put it sort of in the center, and I'm gonna take my skewer and just do the outline of this circle so I know where to cut. Now you could use the skewer and push down and probably get the whole thing, but it is easier to do it, oops, excuse me, I just bumped that. Do it with a knife to get a cleaner edge. Okay, oops, I'm not doing this on the line very well. I'll also show you, you can make beads with the leftover clay, and I'll show you how to do that. Or not, it's up to you. So I'm finding it's easier to do the cutting if you twirl the paper with your hands and just hold down the knife. Okay, so now I'm gonna take this off and I'm gonna pull this up and just don't worry about bending it or anything, because you can fix all of that. Also, some of it may come off on the paper. Don't worry. Again, you can just smooth that out with your finger if you want to. Or not, you can leave it rough. I like to smooth it out. And then choose which side you want to show up on the inside of your dish, okay? You might want this side, you might want that side. I like this side because it's got more gold in it, but you know, everybody's different. And sort of push down the rough edges on the, you know, from where you cut it, because you can see some of this is not very smooth. So I'm gonna smooth it out a little bit just with my fingers. You can just feel it, and you can feel it getting smoother. Then I'm going to take my muffin tin, and I'm going to sort of center it on one of the cups. And you can see how far down it goes on either side. Just try to center it the best you can, and start from the middle, okay? And you can push down the edges, and believe me, you can make it go around evenly. And just, if it's a little bit too big, don't worry about it. You can sand it down later, or you can cut off the edges. That's what's happening here for me. See, one side is a little bit longer than the other. So I'm going to cut this off. Otherwise, it's going to be very difficult to take it off of the muffin tin. So you want to have a little bit of space, at least in one part. Make it as even as you can. I'm taking up the extra here. Okay. There we go. That's pretty good. Now what I'll be able to do is sand it later. You can smooth out anything, because my fingernails made a mark there, but you start it from the middle and then push it down to the edges, and that way you don't get an air bubble caught. So now this is ready to be baked again at 275 for 15 minutes. But I'm also going to make, whoops, I got that, show you how to make some beads. And you can take the extra, and you'll see what happens when you really start mixing it up. You see how the marbleization gets even smaller? So I'll make more or less a circular bead. I can roll it into a circle, and then you can take your skewer. You could use a metal skewer, might work a little bit better than if you've got one, or a toothpick. And I'm making a hole in the middle. You could even use a needle, but if you use a needle, you're going to have to work it around inside the hole to make the hole a little bit bigger, so that you can you're able to put it on, I don't know, a leather thong or a larger piece of cord, something like that. See? And you can make different shapes. One thing that happens a lot when I make these circles is it sort of almost turns into a heart shape. You can make them any size you want, but here you get this, it kind of pushes out. You see how it looks a little bit like a heart? So you can extend that a little bit by pushing it down, making it a little flat, pinching the bottom so you've got the point of your heart. And you see how the gold makes it shine a little bit? That's the part that I like. So now keep in mind, the beads are a little bit thicker than a 1/4 inch, so they need to be cooked a little bit longer, so keep that in mind. So maybe put those on a different, like a cookie sheet or something, so that you can leave them in a little bit longer. So yeah, here, I'm gonna make a heart. You can push down the middle a little bit to make it more, oops, you have to fiddle with it a little bit. My hole is not right in the center, so that's potentially a problem. There we go. I think it looks almost like an ocean. You want to close that up a little bit and then try again to make it come through the middle. There we go. Okay, so you've got your hole. So you can bake all of these, and these are one of the hearts, that's how it came out last time. So now they're ready to bake. So you do that, you let them cool off, and I forgot to tell you, I'm going to put a little piece of sandpaper into your kit as well, because you may want to sand the edges down to make them even. You've got to be a little careful with that. Now, when I made this one, do you see the edges aren't even? I kind of like that, but if you don't and you want that more even, just make sure it's a little bit more even when you put it over the cookie tin, and then you can take sandpaper and sand it down. As I said, I'm also going to give you some gold paint, and if you want to, it's a nice way to sort of finish it off. You're going to have it in a little container. I'm just putting it out on the parchment paper here. And you may need to do a couple of coats because this goes on kind of thin. But very carefully, you could paint gold on just on the edge, and you can dab it on if you want it thicker. But again, be very careful because you don't want it dripping down the sides. So the best way to do this would be to do several coats. But you can also play around with it. If you put it on a little thicker, you see, you can make a nice edge. And what I like about the flat edge that I left on this, just makes it a little easier to do this without having it look really sort of messy on the sides. So you want to do that all the way around. Let it dry. If you want to make it more, you want to make the paint thicker, whatever, just keep doing layers, letting it dry between, and then you'll have a really pretty dish to put whatever you want in. So I hope you enjoy this, and if you want, please give us some pictures of your finished products. We'd love to see them, and let us know if we can post it on our Facebook page. And enjoy. So long.